there! Thank you for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome to Legacy Lookbacks, where I take a look at the Ninjago Legacy sets and how they compare to the original set from a few years back. This is part of my ongoing mega review series, where I'm reviewing every single LEGO Ninjago wave. Unfortunately, the Winter 2021 Legacy wave was just so much content to fit into one video, so what I'm doing is I'm breaking it up, doing a Legacy look back at each one of the Legacy inspired sets, and then at the end of all this, I'll be reviewing and ranking the final collected wave of all of the January 2021 Legacy sets, as well as one extra March one, just to take a look at how this year's first half of the year Legacy sets fare. For the first video here, we'll be taking a look at Jay's ElectroMech. Now this is a 4+ set, it's a very simple build, and we'll be comparing it against the original ElectroMech from the Tournament of Elements wave all the way back for Season 4 back in 2015. So without further ado, let's just dive right in to the Jay's 4+ ElectroMech and take a look.
The next set that we have here is the $20 4+/Juniors style set, Jay's ElectroMech, retailing for $20 US. This includes a simplified 4+ version of Jay's ElectroMech first seen in the Tournament of Elements season, as well as a little rocket or missile car for the Anacondrae cultists here, plus some sort of rocks, bugs crawling on rocks, not really sure why these are just separate here, as well as a little shrine featuring just a simple Ninjago weapon. So obviously the main focus of the build is this 4+ mech, which has been the subject of many memes. It's really funny looking and it's also T-posing on all of the box art, so that kind of just adds to the humor of this. That being said though, I really do wish that we actually got a bigger vehicle for Jay to celebrate the 10th anniversary rather than just this 4+ set, so it is a little bit awkward to me. It does introduce two new molds in the form of the legs, which definitely will be showing up in future junior sets. This won't be the last set that has them for sure. But all in all, it's just kind of funny looking. I don't know how much I can say about this one really. It's just a 4+ set. It does have some nice recolors and pieces though. It has this printed wood element for the Anacondrae vehicle here. Unfortunately, only has it on one side though. I don't know why they only did that for one side. And it features the brand new spring-loaded shooter, which debuted just last year. That's just how it works like so. Apparently this has been deemed safe for children 4 years and up. So children, you can shoot that at your friends. Just don't aim at their eyes. So moving on to obviously the mech here, I mean, articulation-wise, we've got this whole twisting waist articulation, which is actually new compared to the previous model. It did not have this, so it actually is an improvement there. The legs are pretty much fixed in articulation, and you can only get it standing up if they're just rod straight. It features this sort of shuriken razor blade shield piece instead of actually having a mounted gun or whatnot, and just a simple sword on the end, plus the spikes that were shown on the back of the model. But in order to do this legacy comparison, let's move these guys aside and instead compare this against the original Jay's ElectroMech, which funnily enough also retailed for $20. Here we have the original Jay's ElectroMech from 2015. Ignore the possession minifigure there, it obviously is supposed to be the other version of the minifigure, but I just threw in the possession one because I could have him around, and also because that's actually show accurate. He did wear this suit while using this mech in Season 5 as well. Immediately when standing next to each other, you can actually see that there were some attempts to make it remotely similar to the previous mech. It has these blue shoulder pads, these gold circles, which can be seen here, and even has a semblance of these spikes on the top, which I guess are meant to represent these spikes here. Unfortunately though, instead of having a gun-mounted arm, it just has this rather awkward chainsaw. I almost feel like what might have been even better is if they took the gun from this model and stuck it on top of this arm instead. So you could actually angle and point the gun on the mech's arm itself. I feel like that not only would have been a nice callback to the previous set, which had a gun mounted on this arm, which was actually used quite a few times in the show, rather than just having this piece here. I mean, if you're already going to have the gun in the set, why not just put it on the arm itself? Obviously, the cockpit is just wide open, no enclosures whatsoever. Almost feel like it would have been nicer to just flip it around and have him looking above the top, but the cockpit's also pretty open on this one, so I can kind of forgive that. The original one had a pretty neat function where when you press down and press up on this rod, the blades on the back would spring up and down, Obviously, you can't do anything this complex in a junior set, so the junior set just has these two blades mounted on the standard clip pieces in the back. So what can you do? It also has this inexplicable Technic hole or pin acceptor here, which to my knowledge it doesn't attach to anything yet. Moving around here, it's kind of interesting to see how these sets were priced the same way, but the budget obviously was allocated differently. This set actually does come with some conflict in the box, some side scenery and stuff like that, whereas for this set, all of the budget was spent primarily in just making the mech, and I think it also had a villain minifigure as well, but just a minifigure by himself. So all in all, I think that obviously, I mean, in this case, the older one is better. I feel like there's a lot of ways that you could improve on this model. Unfortunately though, since this is a 4+ set, it doesn't improve on any of those. The only way that it's an improvement is that it actually has waist articulation, but even then, I mean, I definitely would prefer this one over this one. Still, it's kind of funny to see how similar they are, especially when shown side by side, and I can only hope that they'll actually remake this in Legacy one of these days. Although it's definitely not one that I'm really clamoring for, there are a lot of other things in sore need of improvement, much more than this. But now it's taking away the original set and putting the focus back on the main set here, it's time to talk about value. So for $20, we get a pretty substantial mech, which is around the same size as the previous one, albeit a lot more simpler. We also get a villain vehicle, which seems pretty formidable, has a cannon which can knock over the mech. And we get this little piece of land as well, plus some rock pieces and insect pieces, for whatever they're worth. Honestly, not really sure why these are here in particular, and especially why they're literally just sitting apart from the other builds. Almost feels like the designer had extra budget and didn't really know what to throw in. But I do actually think that $20 for this set is actually pretty good value. Especially if, say, a kid wanted to own this who maybe isn't too interested in complex buildings and whatnot, just wants to have some conflict in a box. Well, this gives you a pretty sizable mech and a relatively sizable villain vehicle. Sure, it's all very simplified, but I mean, I'm not the target audience here. Younger kids are the target audience. I only wish that in respect to the previous model, this was a gun arm instead, and you mounted this gun on this arm, maybe had some other kind of turret here, and honestly, that's the only really thing I would change about this model, because honestly, there's not too much more you can change without this deviating too much, or being way too complex for a 4+ set. So all in all, I think the set gets a lot of flack. Is it deserved? Well, maybe, but also keep in mind that whoever's giving this a lot of flack probably isn't the target audience for this set, and all in all, I think it's a pretty decent set on its own, especially for younger kids, who can get a hero, a villain, and a hero and villain vehicles to combat, as well as some side scenery to flesh out the play. And to wrap things up, typically I would end the videos with a bit of a comparison between this model and how it stacks up against the actual model that appeared in the TV show. However, since this is a 4+ set, honestly, there's not many comparisons that can be made. Obviously, it kind of retains the general shape. The biggest discrepancy is the lack of the gun arm and instead the shield or spinner being placed on the side of the arm there, but really there's not too much else to say in terms of comparison. Obviously, the original set is much more accurate to the show than this one right here, although it does do a valiant effort in at least trying to appear in some ways similar, especially with the two golden circles near the front and the generally exposed cockpit.
But with that, we've summed up the comparison and differences between these two vehicles. I hope that you enjoyed this video and definitely stay tuned for next time, where we'll take a look at the next Ninjago Legacy Lookback set. Thanks all for tuning in. I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.